Hey guys, Toby Mathis here, and you're listening to the Anderson Business Advisors podcast. I have Kevin, is it Cavenaugh, right? And Suja, Shyam. And these are two very cool real estate investors that I wanted to bring on so you guys could meet because they're not your typical investors. They've done really, really cool projects in the Portland area where they've taken things that you wouldn't ordinarily think, hey, this is going to be a great investment, and they've done amazing social change, and also they get profits. So, but I think the term, Kevin, I'm going to steal something that I've seen from you in the past. That it's enough, right? We don't need to go be greedy pigs. There's a nice return, and you're doing good things for the world and society, and you're solving some problems. And so I want to make that our theme today is let you guys introduce yourselves and talk about what you're seeing as a housing issue, because you guys are in Portland, where I know you guys have housing issues, but what you're seeing as the solution, what's working for you guys there. So let me introduce Suja. Why don't you jump in first and tell them who you are, and then Kevin, you come on and explain what you do too.
For sure. Hey, Toby, and hey, everyone. My name's Suja Shyam, and I am the director of, I guess, affordable housing right now at Guerrilla Development, which is a company that Kevin founded, I don't know, some 20 years ago. And I also have my own real estate investing firm, Lux Capital Investment Group, where I help investors get into more market rate deals. With Guerrilla, we're really more focused on social impact and really making Portland a cooler, better place to live. And I'm just so pleased to be working with Kevin, and the projects that we're doing are super inspiring and just going to impact families on such a great level. So excited to jump into that.
uh, I'm going to share a screen. Let me see if I could screw it up with my technology, because sometimes I'm not very smart. But I want them to see the type of projects you guys are doing, and then you guys could explain what those projects are. But like these aren't little projects here and there. Like, they've done massive changes on some of these landscapes and brought really cool projects. I love this building. I think the fair haired dumbbell.
Yeah.
Like, we'll get into that. But Kevin, tell them about yourself first.
Yeah. Well, one thing I can't do is explain the names. It's much less compelling if I let you kind of play with it in your mind. Um, yeah, I've been called the goat of names. So I started as I like that you called me an investor. I don't. That's the last thing I think I am. I'm got my degree in architecture, and as you can see from my website, I realized, yeah, like Suja said, some 2 decades ago, that I had the most passive seat at the table. And all the power was held by the developer. All the decisions were made by the person who held the purse strings.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember taking a couple of the enlightened clients that I had back in the day out to coffee and said, "Hey, how are you a developer? What does that mean? What kind of degree do you need?" And they're like, "Well, you don't need a degree." I'm like, "Oh crap! As an architect, I need a degree. I have to get a license. I could just print a business card and say I'm a developer." They're like, "Yeah, you need a lot of money, but yeah, just be a developer. Do you have how's your risk appetite?" And I just said off the charts. Uh, so it's about your DNA or your wiring. So I went to my bosses and I said, "Hey, I bought 2 pieces of land. I want to build 2 little tiny projects. I want to design them myself, but I want us as a firm to be the architect of record. Could I hire us to do them?" And they said yes. So every other Friday, I would get a paycheck, and then I would get an invoice for 3 times the amount of the paycheck, and it worked. And I built these 2 little buildings, and they spun off enough money to match my salary. So I quit the next day, and I never looked back. So I'm only a developer to build the weird ass stuff that nobody would hire me to design, like the Fairhair dumbbell. That paint job. If
Let
you
me
scroll
go up to
down
that.
here, that
So,
paint job cost a $500,000
so
on a
what
small
is that?
space. What's that?
What is it?
It's an office building, 5 stories of office over retail. The paint job cost a $500,000. The city flower of Portland is the rose. The state rock of Oregon is the thunder egg or the geode. Every single line on that building is either a thunder egg or a rose. You can't tell; it's abstracted. But now that I've told you, you can't not see it. Cost a $500,000. We had an international competition. We hand painted it, as you can see right there. No one's going to hire me to do that. But when I ran the pro forma, I made it work, and game on. So everything that we do at Guerrilla is an experiment. Without Suja finding the gasoline for the engine, we don't, my ideas are just lovely sketches on napkin. But it started out as a left brain, right brain thing. How can I create art and have it still pencil? How can it still make money? And I kind of toggle back and forth in my left brain and my right brain. That's where I was until about 5 years ago. And I'm talking to you now, Toby, because now it's a head and heart thing. Like homelessness wasn't a problem a decade ago. I can design really weird stuff and what is restauranting going to look like instead of Applebee's. I never want to design Applebee's, but I'll do micro restaurants. Or how can I do really inventive projects? Now is how can I repair the social fabric that's been frayed in America? I build buildings for a living, and we have a homelessness problem. I'm stepping over dudes in sleeping bags. That's just 4 walls on a roof. If I can't crack that nut, shame on me. So then I started 5 years ago diving into, instead of left brain, right brain, it was head and heart. How can I still do compelling projects, but leave the world in a better place? Not just a prettier place, but a better place. So that's what Suja and I wake up every Monday through Friday and do.
So let's dive into that, because I was just mentioning that I'm kind of a follower of the Joint Center for Housing, and I've been doing it for years, pointing out that as an investor, and I am an investor, you invest in society. We all invest in something, in my view, but I am a real estate investor. I like to invest in real estate because I believe that as an individual, I can affect better change than somebody who has a bunch of shareholders that they own a fiduciary duty to, like a BlackRock. Yes. Can't be too nice to veterans and nice to old ladies, right? Exactly. But I can be, because it's my purse strings. But here you are in this space. What have you found as an architect and as a developer that you're actually able to pencil? Because what I have seen is a complete lack. And let me see if I can pull up some numbers. I'll see if I can annoy you guys with a graph.
Oh, I love this
stuff. So I'm going to throw up, and I'm going to share. Let me see if I can share the supply of this is the supply of low cost rentals in the United States. And this is 2011 to 2021. So here we are, a 10-year stretch, and you can see the number of units that was under $600 available was almost 12 million. And now it's down to 8 million. So we've lost about a third of the housing units. It's 8 million of, from 600 to $800, and now it's down to 6.4. We got 6.5. Like when you start adding these things up, you're realizing, oh crap. It's really tough to find a place under $1,300, $1,400. And I imagine Portland's really bad.
Yep. We're just like anywhere else. I mean, the West Coast cities and Northeast and now pockets of most big cities are now suffering from this. And it's so funny because I say things that are politically hot and they're heard as politically hot, but they're not political. Like this is a blue and red problem. This is
Oh, it's a person problem. Like we're probably 700 or 7 million units behind in this country.
Correct. And it's not just because we're not building enough units. That's part of the problem. But it's because we're not making units. We're making poor people.
We're making poor people, and we're not making enough units. I mean, I would say that when you look at the housing, the builds, like just look at this last year, raising interest rates, right? Which is they're taxing us. That's a tax. That makes the builders stop building. I don't know about you, but did it stop you at all when they start raising interest rates? Did it make projects that would have penciled, not penciled?
There were cranes in the sky 5 years ago, and now nothing is starting. Things are just finishing up, and there's nothing following that backlog.
And to me, that's frightening, because I think that we're already at a deficit, and it's not going to get better. We're not going in the right direction. I think that from all estimates that I've seen, and again, I'm just throwing numbers at you guys, it seems like we're about 10 years of building at a surplus away from catching up, and we're not building at a surplus. We're still at a deficit. So So let's talk about solutions. I think you're onto some of the solutions. You're able to build low cost housing, right? That actually pencils. At what price are you able to rent these units to where it's actually penciling?
That's a tough. I want to let Suja jump in, but that's a question that I would have answered that differently a week ago. It's moving so fast.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
Suja,
I think that Kevin's approach, as he said many times before, and will say again, is that what worked, 5 years ago doesn't work in this current environment. And so we are actually, like, for example, I think let's just use a case study of Jolene's first cousin. So Jolene's first cousin is a mixed use project that is one of the greatest, cutest neighborhoods in Portland, and it's only about 13 single room units. So it's like designed for there's ground floor retail, and then there's a couple market rate lofts, and then there's a section which is an SRO, or single room occupant building, and it's for folks who are coming off the street and living. They're ready to pay a little bit of rent, but not necessarily enough to afford their own studio or one bedroom apartment. And what's
Suja,
really great about,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but when you
yeah,
say these are single, like, so this is a boarding house.
yeah, so they share a kitchen and they share a bathroom.
This
it's an
is
And so
11
it's very
bed. It's
efficient
like an
housing.
11 bedroom apartment with a big ass living and dining and kitchen area, but it's like an adult dorm. Would you say, Suja?
Yes, absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's very efficient, right? So that means that it was easier and less expensive for Kevin to build that than to build 11 studio apartments. And it's also nestles into the neighborhood really nicely. So the neighborhood was actually excited to have this building come in. I think when Kevin was at a neighborhood meeting at one point, and someone said, "Well, are you nervous about having homeless people come into the neighborhood?" And then this person said, "Well, once they have a home, they're not homeless."
Mm.
And so it just is a really successful project in terms of not concentrating poverty and in terms of providing a stable place for folks to live. We have a service provider that provides the residents with the services that they might need because, they are in a transitional period. And it's really successful. So that project penciled 5 years ago, and this now it's not penciling anymore. Kevin, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, so you touched on it, Toby, with interest rates, but there's I can handle any one. We can handle like really any one thing. Interest rates going up. Okay, we can pivot, figure it out, get crafty. Construction costs going up. Okay, we can get pivot. We can get crafty. There are more vacancy or other issues. We can get any two of those things happen, and it's just too much. So right now, construction. I built Jolene's first cousin for $145 per square foot hard costs.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's twice that.
Of
My
course it
interest
is.
rate on my perm loan was 3.5%. Now it's twice that. Both those things combined, it it needs a subsidy, and I hate that because I've been running along for a good 15, 20 years. Just the weird guy in the corner getting
Mm-hmm.
individual investors on board, like lowercase s syndications,
Mm-hmm.
neighbors and local folk. Sometimes in this building, we did we crowdfunded this. So there are unaccredited investors who came out for as little as $3,000 total investment.
Mm-hmm.
We won't do that again. That's a lot of work. Um, uh, but I believe in the idea of that. I believe in the idea of democratizing capital and real estate and investing in your neighborhood. But as Suja was saying, the other neat thing about it, this is internal subsidization.
Mm-hmm.
2 market rate lofts, very expensive. 3 retail spaces, a coffee shop, a bakery, a hair salon, very expensive. I want top dollar for those spaces because top design gets top dollar. I want to show the value of good design. But instead of putting that extra money in my pocket or in my investor's pocket, that pushes down the rent for the formerly homeless folk, all in the same building. A reporter reached out and asked, "Hey, why are you going to get anyone wanting to live in the market rate lofts if they're sharing a space with homeless?" And I said, "That's a good question. We're going to find out." He's like, "Well, no one's going to want that." I'm like, "Well, either you're right or you're wrong, but if I never build it, we're never going to find out, are we?" And he was wrong because it takes about 20 seconds to rent out those market rate lots.
because they're just like boom. So like you do market rate and then you do subsidized, right? It's like, so some of it is normal pricing, and then for another group you're actually cutting the price down. And
Exactly.
are you receiving anything from the city or the state or anybody else?
I don't.
No nonprofit. You're not getting United Way or anybody else to participate.
Nope. I did. I have historically run away from public money. This is the tricky part, Toby, that Suja and I are wrestling with right now. I have historically run away from public money. As the developer, I get to decide who's at the table. I get to hire the architect of record, or the structural engineer, or the builder, which bank we're going to use. I get to decide that. That's awesome. I want a table that has 4 chairs in it at most.
Mm-hmm.
I invite the United Way in, and there's 17 chairs at the table.
Yeah.
It took me 15 months from start to finish to build Jolene's first cousin. Some nonprofit, some big lumbering organizations at the table, it's taken me 3 years. Like, I don't have, I'm a middle-aged guy. I have more drawings than I have time. I just want to build.
It depends on the group, So I will say this, because I've worked with the United Way on a number of projects. They usually do. They're a placement agency, so they may say, "Hey, do you have a place that you could rent for $500 a month?" And then they pay the first 6 months, and then they're out. Yeah. Right. And sometimes those tenants are expected to do something, paint the place or participate in work parties or things like that. So, but they're not involved in the building. They're not involved in speccing it out. They're really just saying, hey, I've got 10 folks that I need to get housing for. Cause I buy housing like that too. And it's kind of you get kicked in the shin sometimes because you end up with 10 people that now haven't been paying rent, and they may not want to pay rent, as you go forward. So you may end up with a bit of an issue there, but,
and I think you bring up an interesting point, Toby, which is that there are a lot of different ways, creative ways to build and get tenants in that can or want to pay, a lower rent. There's a lot of creative financing out there. And so we're kind of as Kevin mentioned, we're wrestling with that right now. We did just secure a Oregon State grant for Unicorn Bed, which if you want to pull it up, you can.
Which one's Unicorn Bed?
I think it's
the top, I think.
Oh, at the very top. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So it's coming soon.
It is coming soon. So it's been permit ready for probably a couple years now. And it was one of those projects that was going to pencil just like Jolene's first cousin did. And over the course of COVID, Kevin, you could probably speak more to this. It ended up not penciling anymore. And so we ended up applying for a grant from the state, and we're at like $2.3 million for that grant. So that is going to close the gap in our capital stack, and we can continue building. And it's going to be 13 2-bedroom units for single moms. So we're really excited about that. And it is, one of the ways that we're trying to move forward with continuing to build these projects. And I'm sure we have a lot to learn from you with how to work with tenants from the United Way, for example. So we're going to continue to explore that. But is there anything you want to say, Kevin, about why Unicorn Bed worked 3 years ago, but not today without that gap funding?
It's sadly and comically simple. Construction costs doubling and interest rates doubling. It penciled beautifully pre-pandemic. The pandemic hit, couldn't buy wood, couldn't buy plywood. Everyone, like job sites really, we all know what happened. And then the supply chain issues in the middle and post-pandemic, and then the current interest rate cycle. I could build that for $1.8 million hard costs, construction costs, and now it's 3. My debt service at 3.5% interest was X, and now it's 2X. So it's really simple. It's just that, and I don't know how we're going to get out of it without. Suja basically just got us $2.3 million for this project. She put this project on her back, and now we had permits. We had our orange card. We can call in for inspection. We could pour concrete, except for we couldn't because the math didn't work. And Suja put this project on her back when she came to Guerrilla. And as of 2 weeks ago, we got the grant, and now we're pouring concrete this year, which is fantastic. And there's 3 more right on its heels that we're going to work on. I hate that it takes public money to build affordable housing.
Sometimes it does. It shouldn't, but it does, because like what you said is nobody can build and meet the investor expectation at the cost that it is. The only thing that we do is, I'll just tell you that individually, I've started going more towards the manufactured housing because I can't build for it's $250 for stick built, a foot, and it's $78, $80 for a manufactured house, and it's still great. But I could put 30 manufactured homes on a plot and do it that way, and I can't build and even come close to getting the same level.
Well, and it's interesting because you're in the Midwest, and
Yeah.
Different regions, produce have different methods of construction and such. For 1 year, when I was 27 years old, I lived in Omaha, Nebraska, and worked for Alley Pointer Architecture, and it was fun. And I worked for our client was the Omaha Housing Authority, and I drew a bunch of fabricated, manufactured houses, and they were really cool. And I was shocked that they were half the price. We don't do that on the West Coast. Or on the West Coast, like Dwell Magazine kind of screwed up the industry on the West Coast because manufactured housing actually costs more here than site built. In the Midwest, you guys still are in the sweet spot, thankfully. But
you have a guy actually in Battleground. I think he's right over there by Vancouver, actually. That he's doing some really cool. I call them mini homes, tiny homes, because he's doing really cool manufactured homes, but he's building communities, and it's interesting. Young guy. It's penciling out, and he's just like, I'm just going to do it. He's building his own manufacturing facility, and he's like, I'm just going to do it.
When we're done, please send me his number, because
I will.
There are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that brings up an interesting point in general, which is like the cost of building has gone up, not just because of construction costs, but because of design requirements and building code requirements. I mean, you've probably seen that over the course of 20 years, Kevin, right? Like, I mean, do you feel like it's prohibitive? What do you see as like the solutions there? I mean, obviously we've got one, which is manufactured housing, but that doesn't go up. So
yeah, there's a lot. So someone that I used to work with, Bob Boileau, said that I do state of the shelf designs, and that's not that's not new to me. But I'm like, what do you mean by that? That sounds like a backhanded insult, or whatever that expression is. He's like, no. Like everything in your buildings, you can get off the shelf at Home Depot or at Lowe's. Like you're not doing anything. You're not being too much. You're not getting in your way as an architect, but you create volume, or you create views, or they're still beautiful, beautiful spaces, but they're not trying to be fancier than they need to be. So I don't think anyone's building cheaper than us, Suja. I think if we can't do it, that's a bad sign in society. But yeah, I mean that's the tree farm.
I was just going to ask you, because some of these are like really cool. And by the way, these are open source, right? Somebody could take your design and go put it in their own town, and you're not sitting here dinking them on the price or anything. You're just like, hey, if you can build it, go for it.
Yeah, on the website, do this. Go down to the bottom. There should be a bunch of links to not just plans but pro forma. Yeah, pro forma financials. Click on that.
Let me
it's
see
not
if
just
it
a
actually.
PDF. It's the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. Let me see
no worries. I got an email from some guy in Perth, Australia, and he said, hey, by the way, I just built the zipper here in Perth. I got the plans and the pro forma off your website. I hope you don't mind. I'm like, I've been to Perth once in my life. I probably won't go again. It's a lovely city. I'd rather you build the zipper than another Olive Garden. Enjoy. Don't call it the zipper. That feels kind of weird, but have fun.
That's one of your projects. Here, I'm going to see if I can't do a screen. I'm going to do the share. Let me see if I can. It's going to be a lot of numbers, but you're actually giving them the pro forma that everything breaks down, like truly open source. This is pretty insane.
Yeah, you can see what my investors are making. You can see what I'm making. You can see what the 10-year internal rate of return is.
I can look at
these numbers don't work in Perth, but plug in your own numbers and it'll spit out what the product looks like for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna go, because you just mentioned the zipper, and people may not realize that's another project. Says I love the fact that you have all these projects. So I'm one of those guys that I like to see it. So I want to.
Yeah. So I would say that one of Kevin's like signature types of projects is these micro restaurant projects with communal eating areas. And the zipper is
there. It is. The zipper
is one of those where there's just all these cute little restaurants, and then if you go There's now a great patio in the back and a communal eating area. What would you say this does for the tenants, Kevin? Like, what kind of tenants want to be in there? And,
So I built this for $106 a square foot. It's the dumbest building ever, and I love it. And the artwork costs $35,000, and it doesn't get me more rent, but it's beautiful and I love it. And it's lenticular art, and it's on a busy thoroughfare. Like, this is on Sandy Boulevard, which is a really gross street in town where all the used car auto mall street basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, whenever someone looks at my stuff, they're like, oh, we can't do that here. I'm like, what? You don't have a crappy used car lot boulevard?
This is what it was before you built it, right? I'm looking right
Dick
now.
Alfonso used Cadillac parking lot. So it was a triangle. It was a weird site. And and in Portland, one thing we do really well in Portland is food. And there are 600 food carts, and it's really high level food. But and a food cart, they're fascinating because it's $25,000 to buy a food cart and to open your own business. It's a really low level of entry to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of first generation immigrants are food cart operators serving amazing food. A restaurant is the opposite end of that spectrum. You need a couple $100,000 at the very least to start a restaurant. So I built the Zipper and the Ocean and Rocket Empire Machine. As Suja was mentioning, we've done a lot of these because I want to bridge the gap between a food cart and a full scale restaurant. So inside this building, there are 5 restaurants and a bar. The restaurants on average are 500 square feet, and there's a big communal indoor dining area, and it's like the food court at the mall, except without crappy food and without the mall. It's got fire pits. It's just got a cool vibe. There's a DJ on the weekends. It's when the Blazers in the playoffs, they play the game up on. It's a good time.
How much is it for rent? Like if I'm in one of these restaurants, what am I paying?
I love this question. It's a lot. It sets a record per square foot. So from a developer standpoint, from an investor standpoint, it's a really good return. Side note: this is way getting out of affordable housing, but it's another experiment on how to change neighborhoods.
It's all like that.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Because it's still a community. It's still really doing something cool, and you're able to use these techniques. You built this thing for less than $110 a foot.
Exactly.
It looks like it could almost be living space too. Like, I'm always looking and realizing we're going to have this big implosion of commercial. What are these people going to do with it? You can't use it for storage because the loads are too high for that. So you're probably going to have conversions, and you're going to have people that are going to have to be pretty creative about converting space.
Yep. And to answer your rental question, it's per square foot. It's the highest retail price per square foot in the area by far. But if you're a food cart operator, or if you're a tiny entrepreneur, you're not looking at the world in a per square foot scenario. You're looking at what's the rent check I cut you every month. And typically, if I know that you can gross your rent on your best day of the month, it works. And that's about what rent is. Like these micro restaurants are grossing about $2,500 on a Saturday, and that's rent. And they don't care about price per square foot. This is another one. This is an old auto, like this. These are all auto-oriented buildings.
Rocket Empire Machine. I like it.
And each of those bays used to be where you would drive in and get your car serviced. Now each of those bays is a restaurant.
I love it.
Yeah. And then I would add the social impact part on the Rocket Empire Machine is that Kevin had put in one of the units, a kind of a subsidized unit. We have like what we call a beneficiary tenant. And it's this Ethiopian restaurant that he found out was just displaced because their rent doubled overnight. And Kevin was looking for, we were trying to also prevent gentrification of commercial tenants and having them being kicked out. So I don't know if there's a picture of her on there, but Kadro is the owner of this Ethiopian restaurant, and her rent is fixed, right, Kevin?
It's $999 a month for the first 3 years. And because all the research we did shows that if you can withstand the gentrification wave for 3 years, you do really well. So Kadro, it's the Somali community. There's a big Somali neighborhood on Northeast Gleason Street, and because of products like ours, because we gentrify neighborhoods we don't want to, but if you bring in if you take an ugly building and make it beautiful, it's the math that follows behind you and the folk that buy the building across it. I can't keep my neighbor across the street from doubling his rent. But when he did, and Cadro was pushed
But
out.
we get to, my whole point is that when you get people that are individual investors into things like you can actually make that decision. If it's BlackRock, they cannot.
Exactly.
They'd be breaching their fiduciary responsibility unless they were very clear with their investors that they were using a social use, which I think more people are going to start doing because they realize it's good for society. But it's tough when you're if I need money to live off of, I need to generate such and such a return. I don't really care about everybody else, right? You start to get a little selfish there. But if you're able to accomplish both, it's hard to get that feeling elsewhere. I used to joke that if people that always say the money is the root of all evil and money doesn't buy happiness. And I'm like, well, then you haven't given enough away. You want to feel really good about yourself, just like randomly just give a big chunk away to somebody and then tell me that same thing. But anyway.
I have a thought on that front, and then I want Suja to talk about the atomic orchard experiment, because we're always crafting different financial models, and Suja's the finance brain at Guerrilla, the 4 plus 100%.
The atomic orchard experiment. I want to make sure I pull that one up.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
Yep. So before though, you're exactly right, Toby, and there's this weird idea of the bifurcated mind of a high net worth American, say. Back in the day, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers, with their left hand, they would do whatever they needed to do to make as much money. And I would club baby harp seals if it was profitable. And then with my right hand, I just give it away and I build a library, or I give it away and I build a university. And the investors that Suja is finding at Guerrilla are folk who aren't bifurcated. Everything they do has meaning. So I'm happy to invest. I'm a capitalist. I'll invest in your projects, Kevin and Suja. I want to make a return, but I want to make enough. I don't need to maximize my return. Whenever I get an investor, we always get a cup of coffee. I want to meet you. We're dating. We're not going to, I'm not going to take your money until I know who you are. I'm going to Google you and see if you've sued anybody. If that's how you deal with conflict, I don't want your money. There's better ways to deal with conflict.
Half the investors out there. No, most
are
actually.
I say no more than I say yes to investors. B, I want to know where yield is of importance for you. And if it's number 1 or 2, I'm wasting your time. I introduce you to somebody who's doing self-storage facilities out by the airport, because you're going to be happier with that person and putting your money in those buildings. You're not going to be happy with me, or vice versa. So
we have those, by the way, too. And that's the funny part is like I love self-storage but they get huge returns, but it's like we never want to have a toilet. We never want to have an actual tenant, but it is its own little animal.
But as an architect, I wake up in the morning wanting to make my city beautiful and change people's lives. But Suja, you could talk about the math that you kind of crafted and sold at Atomic, if you don't mind.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, for sure. So Atomic Orchard Experiment, it's under construction right now, which is really exciting. And it has about 50 units, and 25 of those are eventually going to be affordable for social workers. And they're beautiful lofts. I think it's like 17 feet foot ceilings, right, Kevin?
When you say, but when you say social worker, are these residential, or are these for social work? That people that are doing work in society?
These are, so the tenant base will be social workers.
These are residents in an apartment building.
Okay, so this is residential, right. but you're gearing it towards folks that are actually in a low income. You
wanted to make the housing affordable in Central City, Portland, for people who are working on the front lines of the homelessness crisis, for example, because also people like social workers and teachers are also getting kind of kicked out of Portland because rents are just going higher.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, is to
major
help the people who are
everywhere. They can't live in their city because the teachers don't get paid enough, or police don't get paid enough, or fill in the blank doesn't get paid enough. So.
Yeah, exactly. And so this has both internal subsidy, meaning that 25 of the units will always be market rate units. And so those are going to be making it more affordable for us to, making it pencil for us to have 25 of these at an affordable level.
Mm-hmm.
And the affordability is going to grow every year. They'll start with 3 affordable units, and then the next year there'll be 6 affordable units, and by kind of spreading it out like that, we'll be able to work up to 25 units over about 10 years.
And these are less than $600 a month, right? I'm looking, I think it says $582 per month. Is that what they're locking the loft down to?
You might be looking at the old pro forma. It's gone up a little bit, but it's half price.
Half
for
price.
social workers.
Half of market rate. And so what we've offered to investors in this case is a 4% average 4% return for 10 years. And then at the end of 10 years, there's what we call a kicker. I'm trying to remember the exact math. Kevin, do you remember
100%.
what it is? 100% kicker. So basically you get 4% every single year. And then at 10 years, you get your capital back plus 100% kicker. So, twice that. So if you put in $100,000, then you'll get 4% times 10 years. That's $40,000. And then you'll get, at the end of 10 years, you'll get your $100,000 back plus another $100,000, which is a 14% average annual return, which is really, really excellent for investing in affordable housing.
Yeah. Are you finding that there are nonprofits that are looking to invest in any of these projects? Because they're always trying to get a return. You got a lot of different groups with sitting on a lot.
What do you mean, Toby? Like what kind of nonprofits?
Like even a teachers union. So whenever I say nonprofit, I mean exempt organization. So it could be it could be a pension, it could be the small mom and pop or a foundation where they're required to give away a portion of their money every year, but they still have to invest the principal that they have.
Yeah, so that is a really good question, and I think we're going to be talking to you more about that. One thing that we have going on with you guys, with your help, is that currently Kevin's company is structured as a for-profit company.
Mm-hmm.
And that does make it a little bit more challenging for us to court, money from foundations, et cetera. So we're becoming a nonprofit so that, these projects make more sense to folks like the ones you're talking about.
Yeah.
We've never cracked that nut, Toby. We've never gotten past. All of our investors have always been individuals. We've never had any a pension fund. I think we're teed up beautifully for a pension fund, but I'm used to this culture of scarcity. So I'm asking investors for 50 or 100 grand. I'm getting individuals, and I'm not. I don't know how to talk to the folk who can just write one check and do Atomic Orchard and get it done. And they like the math behind it. 4% fixed, and then there's this 100% kicker.
It's a great return. I mean, I don't see why you'd have a problem raising it from the for-profit world. There's groups that's a great return. 14% projected return is not horrible.
I would think so, but the funny thing is, maybe it's because it's Portland. Maybe it's because we're just the weird kids. But
Oregon's tax doesn't help. That's for sure.
But Suja, if it was easy, I wouldn't have hired Suja. But it's hard, and I just want to draw it. I just want to make the buildings, and Suja does what I am not good at doing and what I hate doing, which is finding the money, making sure it's the right money, and bringing it in. And it really is a hard job. It's slowed down right now. It's my money capital. People are circling the wagons right now.
Yeah,
and it's the worst possible time for that to happen because the need is so dire.
Yeah, I mean, 4% a year sounds great until you can go to a savings account and get 4%.
Exactly.
That's
4% worked, 3 years ago. But right now you can just get a T-bill for 5%. So
without that 100% kicker, it doesn't make sense. But my comment,
it still makes sense with the kicker for sure.
So two more things on Atomic Orchard. My comment to investors is you're not buying groceries with this is a dividend, just like in a stock. You don't buy a stock for the dividend. Rarely.
Mm-hmm.
You buy it for its growth. So there's the 100% growth that's kind of baked in. The neat thing about Atomic Orchard Experiment is it's our first legal discrimination project. So again, we like playing with. We don't even know the rules we're breaking. So I remember I called my lawyer and said, "Hey, am I allowed what am I allowed to discriminate against?" Well, there's a protected classes, obviously, sexual orientation, age, race, religion. I'm like, oh, I understand that. How about employment? He's like, no, that's not protected. You weren't born an architect, Kevin. You chose that profession, just like you chose your white shirt today. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, oh, cool. So I can say to you, my lawyer. I won't rent to you because you're a lawyer. He said, well, you actually can. Legally, that's weird, but why would you do that? I'm like, well, it's not about that. It's about saying, I will rent to you because you're a social worker or you're a school teacher or you're a fireman, because I want to honor what you do and port the needs you desperately. And I want you to live in this central city, which is where you want to live, but you've been priced out. So it's our first legal discrimination project because if you're a social worker working on the front lines of the homelessness problem, I want to honor you with the key to a sexy ass loft that's half price. And by the way, you don't need to be poor. It's not about affordable housing for poor people. It's legal discrimination by profession.
And there's other areas that could actually be using some of that. And I'll just drop some at you guys just because it's fun to watch you guys ponder these things. But there's groups that are trying to do neurodiverse, right? You have autistic adult children. Parents are scared to death of what's going to happen to their children. They're able to work. They just need somebody there, and they're starting to build neurodiverse communities, meaning that you have both autistic and non-autistic. The autistic might need some sort of subsidization, because the parents might be covering two households, right? They want their child to be independent, but they can't afford $3,000 or $4,000 a month. They just can't do it. Totally. And so they're exploring these, and this type of property would actually fit that quite nicely.
Well, and that reminds me, the funny thing is we're almost doing that. And Suja, I keep kicking things to you. Like, how do you feel about, do you want to talk about Great Scott Trio, which is kind of not
Let's do that,
what Toby's mentioning?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So this is
a project plan, by the way. It's not like we fed Toby like all these questions. This happened just to be laying out this way.
Yeah. So this is a project that we currently have 100% permitted, and we're looking for that gap funding. We're currently in the process of applying for it, and it is a 39 one-bedroom residential project, and 1/3 of the units are going to be rented to kids who are aging out of the foster care system, because the foster care kids are just
that's a nonprofit activity, guys. Like, that's the thing, is there's groups that I won't keep preaching to the choir, you guys.
No. Look, we're all ears, because we know that we have a lot on the table that we need to access to get these projects built.
I just think it's amazing that you literally just post all your stuff online. You're just like, yeah, if you want to steal our design, steal it.
Well, that's one of the great things about Kevin, is that he's like, he's evangelical about this, and it's like, look, if you want to go do this, go do it. I will give you whatever I can, and please go do it, right? Because the need is so great. It's not like it's not like there's a lack of need.
What is this going to cost per foot?
$300.
Wow. So you went from 100 to 300. All these.
It's really hard.
What could somebody build it like in the Midwest for? Like, is it just because it's Portland, or is it just nowadays? Is it just
the thing I built for 100? It was a single-story building, slab on grade. Really, it was that kind of building is about the cheapest building to build, aside from self-storage. This, with micro one-bedrooms, pretty small one-bedrooms, there's a lot of kitchens and bathrooms per square foot crammed in here. So it's a pretty expensive building regardless. You mentioned $250 a square foot. So I'm probably 20% more than you.
No, I'm just saying that just to get started, a stick built, you're looking at $250, just base bare bones. The interesting thing is there's another company called Pad Split that's doing some of this, but they're doing it with single families. And what they're trying to do is, it's the old boarding house. So you're buying older homes and you're fixing them up, putting them, instead of having a big, huge living room and a big dining room, they may convert those into bedrooms, and they have a common area, and each person has a secure room. And they're usually leasing them out for a month at a minimum, and then weekly thereafter. But it's pretty interesting. That model seems to be working too, just to plant more seeds, because again, we're all trying to solve the same problem, and it's like there's a lot of smart people out there, and it seems like Suja, you've got the finances down, and Kevin, you've got the technical expertise to start to build these things. Obviously,
I'm not smart. I want to be smart person adjacent. I just want to know smart people, because then
No, there's a lot of folks that feel committed to this, that feel drawn towards, hey, well, they know there's a problem, especially in the West Coast, we have a big issue. East Coast, we have a big issue. The Midwest, not as bad, obviously, uh, but I look at it and I just think, like, we're so wealthy. Why the heck do we have homeless? Seattle,
Yeah.
San Francisco, and Portland, and Los Angeles. What the heck? What's wrong with us? Why can't we fix this? So anyway, if somebody wants to, I know we kind of went different areas in this conversation, but if somebody wants to get in touch with you guys and learn more about ways that they can get involved in your projects,
Yeah. So
how do you go about doing that?
if you go back there, Toby, to the webpage, I can show you where you can go. If you're interested in being an impact investor with us and getting, the types of returns we were just talking about, that 14% average annualized return, then you can just go to, and then if you scroll down, go to the invest, and you can just book a call with Kevin. And that would be great to just learn if you would be a fit for us and if we would be a fit for you.
We will put the link. I've been on guerrilladev.co this whole time. I didn't say what the website is, but I'll put it in there so that somebody can go in here. It's Guerrilla Development Company. There it is. And there's the participate button right there on that first thing. And there's your TED Talk, which I did watch. And you did
definitely listen to the TED Talk.
Kind of crazy.
Kevin, I'm not going to say anything about the pants because nothing needs to be said about the pants. But
Yeah, is that what they call like a teaser to get people to like, what is he talking about? What's Toby saying?
Yeah, that's a teaser. Go watch it.
Definitely sign up for our mailing list, but especially, if you are interested in being an impact investor, make sure to book some time with Kevin.
Yeah. Well, again, I can't say it. There's a huge need. There's a lot of folks that are actually trying to there's nothing wrong with capitalism, right? It's going to solve a lot of issues. But you mentioned Carnegie, and he's one of my favorites. He wrote something called The Gospel of Wealth. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. But he said millionaires are the trustees of the poor. Like, there's people that are really good at making money, and there's people that are really, really bad at it. You kind of need the ones that are good at it, and we need to be responsible for the ones that may not be able to, or they're just not very good at it. Because through no fault of their own, it could be medical, it could be just circumstances, it could be any.
The margins are so thin right now. You know what's interesting is, and you're in the Midwest, there was an interview with call centers, and I forget the industry. Could be banking, could be credit card, could be whatever. But a lot of the call centers are in the Midwest, and it's interesting because the person on the end of the line who's servicing the call can tell if you're from one of the coasts or if you're from the Midwest based on how stressed out you sound. And the comment is that the margins are so much thinner on the coast. It's so like the middle class has been cored out of the coasts much more than the Midwest. When, my wife got a nursing degree at Creighton, and there are people, 2-income families who are making not significantly more than minimum wage can actually buy a home in the outskirts of Omaha. It's impossible to even consider in the Northeast or Northwest or Florida or the big cities. So that's a change that happened in our lifetimes. And it happens slowly, like a frog boiling in water. I'm not a policy wonk. We're not going to get into politics. I have all kinds of theories about why that happened. Both parties have failed us. Other countries can do this. One thing I mentioned in the TED Talk is that we invented the American dream. Now there are 16 countries that do it better than us. Like there is stickiness at the top 20% and the bottom. If you're born poor, you could be amazing. You're gonna die poor. I mean, it's not our parents' economy anymore, and we can lament as to why or how that happened, or we could just Suja and you and I can just go and do what we can to fix
it. I like that one. I always think that there's where there's a will, there's a way, and we just have to decide that we want to solve some of these issues. Yeah. And I think that the individual investor is way more empowered than some of these folks that have their hands tied by the rules that the SEC imposes on them or their fiduciary relationships. And so we're not bound by that. We can decide, hey, I'm good with a 6% return or 7% return.
Yeah.
We don't need to get a 17% return all the time. Although it's certainly great, it's wonderful, but you don't have to do that with everything.
Yeah, have
you can
that in your
very,
portfolio
very, very,
too. Have your Nvidia stock. That's great. Do all kinds of fun stuff that just makes really good money. But the American investor is more sophisticated, and I don't want to eat the same meal. I don't want to eat chicken parmesan every time. I want some variety in my investments, in my meals, in my life.
No, absolutely. You guys have been awesome. So I'm going to put your guys' contact information. I'm going to make sure people can get out to you, and we're going to have you on the investing side, because we do have the investing side where we have a lot of folks that are investing in projects. They can certainly reach out to you, but I know for certain that we'll have to have you on over there so you can talk about some of these projects, because beautiful projects, really cool. These are things that you would love to have in your community. So many projects that we see, especially when they're price conscious. I want to drive by it. I don't want to drive to it.
Yeah.
And this changes that considerably, and you're using really, really cool aesthetics to make it something where somebody would feel proud. Because whenever I think about low income housing, I don't know about you, but you think about the projects, you think about some of these, it's the same unit 20 times over, and it looks almost like a prison.
There is, we'll save it for the next chat, but there is a myth of efficiency or economy of scale. And Suja and I, we don't play in those waters, and we're showing that you don't have to, you can have sexy design and affordable housing, and it's not an or equation. It can be an and equation.
I like it. Sexy and affordable. Suja, thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll get this out to everybody. And again, I encourage anybody who wants to reach out to Kevin. And if you're a builder or developer, you reach out to Kevin and Suja and talk about doing it in your neighborhood. Because this is the first time. This is the first for me where an architect's like, here, just take my stuff and do it in your neighborhood. So you got a community that's willing to allow you to do that. Take advantage of it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Toby.
Thanks, Toby.